All right, story of Jacob. There's some stories in the Bible that tell us as people of God how we're supposed to live. They give us good examples. That's not the case today as we look at the story of Jacob. All right? Jacob is one of the most popular boys' names in this country. Who knows someone named Jacob? Pretty much everyone knows someone named Jacob, right? It's been around for quite a while. There's lots of reasons why people might choose a name that comes from the Bible. I know most of the three of us, 3 out of the 4 kids in our family are named a biblical name. My brother's got great names. Mark, one of the gospel writers, Timothy, who is leader of the church, and then Stephen, who gets killed in the 4th chapter, right? So I said, wait a second, I just get this little bit. That's me. So we choose, sometimes people use biblical names because of the story associated with it. Sometimes we choose a name simply because we like the name and what it sounds like. But there's no one that I know who's ever chosen the name Jacob because they said, I want my child to grow up to be like Jacob in the Bible. All right? Jacob cheats, he lies, he's the poster child for dysfunctional families. All right? And he comes by it honestly. His parents, his grandparents were really dysfunctional as well. There's a lot of heartache in the story of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. But most of that heartache is self-inflicted, right? It comes because of jealousy and showing favoritism and failing to trust the promises of God. Again, like I said, these stories in Genesis are not examples of how we are supposed to live. They're examples of how God can use us in spite of ourselves, right? They're examples of pure grace, where we don't get what we deserve. God does better for us. Well, last week we left off with God testing Abraham. Remember, he asked him to sacrifice his son Isaac. But this was just a test, and God stopped him and said, and gives him this promise, this blessing that he's going to be with him, and through him the whole world would be blessed, and that would be passed on to his son Isaac. And Isaac then would have the job of passing this blessing on to the next generation. So Isaac gets married. Isaac has twin boys, right? Jacob and Esau. And we saw in our little video they were fighting before they were born. It didn't get any better after they were born. Now again, life was different then than it is now in many ways. Birth order was massively important. In our family, we've noticed that firstborns just like to be bossy, right? I don't know if you had that experience in your birth order in your families, but it was really important at this time, biblical time, because that first person got a double share of everything, got to be the person in charge of everything. And we heard the story in our little video thing, how Jacob takes advantage of his brother's weak moment, cheats his brother out of his birthright, that was his. And now as our story goes on, we heard again how Esau was old, he was blind, he knew he was about to die, so it's time for him to pass the blessing on to his favorite son, Esau. So he sends Esau out to go hunting, get some food, and prepare my food, and then as soon as I'm done eating, we have this wonderful meal together, then I will bless you. Remember the story how Rebekah heard what was going on. She liked Jacob better, so she says, Jacob, while your brother's out hunting, just go get a couple lambs. I'll cook them up so it tastes wonderful. Take it to your father. He'll bless you, and you will get the blessing. Jacob says, Mom, I don't think it's going to work because Jacob and Esau is so different from me. He's a hairy guy. He smells like the woods. And she says, don't worry about that. You wear Jacob's clothes. We'll put some hairy stuff on your arms, so if he reaches out to feel you, it'll feel like Jacob. And so that's what they do. With Mom's help, Jacob, her favorite son, impersonates his brother and gets the blessing. Again, Esau, when he finds out about this, is furious. Right? He goes to his father and he pleads. He says, can I please have a blessing as well? But Isaac says, no, I've already given the blessing. I can't take it back. Once it has gone out of my mouth, the word has been spoken. It cannot come back to me. He says, can you give me another blessing? And he says, sort of. He gives him sort of a blessing, but it's not much of a blessing. All right, so now for us, this is hard to understand. We say, well, wait a second. Jacob was a lying little cheat. He shouldn't have gotten the blessing. Why not recall that blessing and give it to the person it was supposed to go to? But it's a different way of understanding how spoken word works. 2 weeks ago when we looked at the book of Genesis, God simply said, "Let there be light," and there was light. By speaking the word, a reality was created. Or when Abraham speaks and says, "Sacrifice your son," Abraham doesn't question it. He says, "God has spoken. This is the reality." Once the word is given, this new reality exists. Used to be that if someone gave their word, that was all that needed to happen. Someone would say, "I promise to do this," and you could count on that. Now we need signatures for everything, right? You can't do anything without getting a signature. The word doesn't seem to carry the weight that it used to. I can't get my car worked on without signing a piece of paper says, I want you to work on my car. The written word seems to carry more weight for us than a spoken word. But that wasn't the way it was in an oral culture. When everything was passed on orally, spoken word was definitive. There was no taking it back. So Esau literally plans to kill his lying, thieving, now blessed little brother, right? But mom gets wind of it. She sends Jacob running for his life, hide out until Esau cools down, which will take about 20 years, right, for Jacob to cool down. It will take some time. It'll be 20 years before Jacob is able to return home. But I'm getting ahead of myself. But I want to talk about this journey as he leaves home. That's where we want to pick up our story today. He finds himself on the run. So, that's from chapter 28. Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there for the night because the sun had set. And taking one of the stones from that place, he put it under his head and laid it down in that place. And he dreamed there was a ladder set up on earth, the top of it reaching the heavens. And the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside Jacob and said, "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and your offspring. And your offspring will be like the dust of the earth. And you shall spread abroad to the west and the east, the north and the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your offspring. Know that I am with you. I will keep you wherever you go. And I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I've done what I have promised." Then Jacob woke from his sleep. He said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." He was afraid, and he said, "How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God. This is the very gate of heaven. Know that I am with you wherever you go." That's a powerful promise. It doesn't mean everything is going to go great for Jacob. It doesn't at all. Jacob experiences firsthand what it feels like to be cheated, as his father-in-law cheats him for 14 years. He'll never see his parents alive again. There's consequences for our actions. But through it all, the good and the bad, Jacob recognizes that God is with him. This dream he has of a ladder reaching up is not about him or anyone else trying to climb up to reach God. It's not how it works. Even that's the song. No one's climbing Jacob's ladder. Angels coming and going. That's what Jacob's ladder is about. Earlier in Genesis, we had the story of the Tower of Babel. That's where people wanted to try to build a tower so they could reach up, they could climb up and reach God. And God says, no, that's not how it works. I'm the one who will come to you. It's a conduit for God's angels to minister in and among and through us. And there's nothing special about the place, right? Jacob takes the oil and pours it on the rock that he used as a pillow for that night and says, this is a special place because God is here, and he calls the place Bethel, house of God. But he missed the point. The point was not that this is a special place, that God is really present here. The promise was, I am with you wherever you go. Whether it's in this place or that place, wherever you go, I will be with you, and I will bring you back, and I will not leave you until I've done what I said I have promised to do. Jacob is blessed. But what does that have to do with us? What does it happen in our life? Well, the whole thing, Jacob's blessing was not simply a blessing for Jacob, right? He was blessed so he could be a blessing for others, and ultimately that the whole world would be blessed. And that's what we see ultimately when we get to the story of Jesus. Now in our timeline here, we're really early on here. So we're here at the story of Jacob, almost 2,000 years BC. Now Jesus, way down the road. So this promise that the whole world would be blessed is passed on from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob to Joseph, and passed on. It's going to come through Moses and through all the prophets and the judges and through David and the kings, and finally is going to be revealed in Jesus. And Jesus is going to extend the same blessing to those who followed him, right? He's going to gather the disciples, and as he leaves them, he says to them, look, I am with you always, even to the end of time. Those weren't just nice words or wishful thinking. This is words that have power to create reality, right? I will be with you. This is a promise of grace. Like Jacob, we do nothing to deserve or earn that kind of love. It's simply given to us, not just for our own benefit, but that we might be blessed to be a blessing for the whole world. It's not a promise that life will not sometimes be difficult, because sometimes it is. Sometimes it's terribly difficult. But the word that God spoke to Jacob is also the word that is spoken to us, that I am with you always. Let's get the band back up here. We got a song, I think we introduced it once, months ago, so we're going to come back to it again. You know, you may not have remembered this one. It's a song that talks about how God can use absolutely anybody, all right? So the song's called Everybody's Got Something to Offer. It's that there's no one who is somehow outside of the realm of God being able to use them, their time, their gifts, their abilities, to be able to do that. So we recognize that God, if God can use Jacob, God can use anybody. So you'll catch on to this as we go. The song is called Everybody Got Something to Offer.